Because we have grown complacent, because we have grown decadent, because we have adopted a trust me government attitude, our nation has lost a critical perspective that I believe we must get back. Now, how do we do that? What's wrong with the U.S. Constitution? A question I posit to my fellow citizens in today's preamble. Far too many in government and in the nation now say that they oppose free speech, mostly free speech they disagree with. They want government restrictions to silence those who don't agree with the majority, or at least a majority of the elites and government. But I ask, what's wrong with, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, end quote. The constitutional conservative knows the First Amendment well and also knows that one fights disagreeable speech with more free speech, not censorship. Americans, real Americans, are repulsed by not being allowed to voice dissent against the government or support for their preferred policy or candidate. The right to dissent is one of the major tenets of being an American. Facebook owner Mark Zuckerberg is finding that out the hard way. Reports indicate that Mr. Zuckerberg has hired a Republican strategist to fix his PR problem with conservatives after years of Mr. Zuckerberg's totalitarian censorship on his platforms. First, if Mr. Zuckerberg wants to mend fences with constitutional conservatives, the last person he should be consulting is a Republican. These days, many of them don't know the first thing about being conservative. Secondly, if Zuckerberg wants forgiveness for his anti-American censorship, perhaps his platform should stop, I don't know, censoring people, something the platforms are still doing today. Thirdly, Facebook's parent company, Meta, should stop accepting Americans' taxpayer dollars that a judge ruled were being illegally used to suppress free speech online. Now, we're going to be addressing the Second Amendment in great detail in a few moments, but let's move on to the 10th Amendment, shall we? It states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. In other words, unless the Constitution expressly gives the federal government power to do something or to limit something or to allow something, the rest of the powers are relegated to the states and to our people. The Constitution was the Founding Fathers' way of placing limits on the government, not on our people. But with the power of self-government comes responsibility, a responsibility to preserve this last best hope of mankind on earth. Our power wasn't a signal to us for our people to take that power and responsibility and just give it away to government. The great Ronald Reagan spoke of the danger of doing that.
As your nominee, I pledge to you to restore to the federal government the capacity to do the people's work without dominating their lives. I pledge to you a government that will not only work well, but wisely. Its ability to act tempered by prudence, and its willingness to do good, balanced by the knowledge that government is never more dangerous than when our desire to have it help us blinds us to its great power to harm us.
Now, after the original 10 amendments and the amendments that corrected our long-dead sin of slavery, a shift began to happen in amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Amendments that turned their backs on the Founding Fathers' vision came into being in 1909 and 1912. The men who undertook these abuses, and yes, they were abuses, and yes, they were men. Perhaps if Congress had women in it at the time, those women would have tempered the blind ambition and government selfishness that led to the 16th and 17th Amendments. In my view, the punishing of our citizens to benefit government through the income tax and the stripping away of control over senators from the states did tremendous damage to our politics and people. If the foolhardy men had concentrated first on the 19th Amendment, giving American women the vote, perhaps the disasters of the 16th and 17th Amendment could have been avoided. By and large, the Constitution remains the greatest document ever conceived of by man. It is under constant attack by forces who wish to strip rights from the people and expand the government's power. Government was and is a terrible thing. something that was to be feared and tamed like a wild beast. Our founders believed government was a necessary evil. That's why they meticulously constructed the Constitution to limit the government's power. And let this constitutional conservative be honest with you. The Constitution does limit government's power to give you everything you want. But at the same time, it also limits government's power to take everything you have. It's about time our people started taking the Constitution and violations of it personally. It's about time we taught our children that reverence for the Constitution isn't only laudable, but necessary. We parents have to do this because GovEd certainly won't do it. And it's about time we insisted that all our people, big or small, live by the same rules, and we should seek to severely punish those who violate our mutual compact. In short, constitutional conservatism is alive and well with a majority of our people. It's time we demanded and installed a government that reflects that majority. That brings me to the Second Amendment and the efforts to undermine our God-given right of self-defense. A Texas appeals court inexplicably denying Attorney General Ken Paxton's efforts to block an illegal policy from the State Fair of Texas, the banning of legal firearms on government property. The district court judges agreed with the State Fair officials that they could enforce a gun ban as a private nonprofit. But many argue this policy violates state law, which bars most government bodies from prohibiting the legal carrying of firearms. Critics are asking, hey, what's next? Will a nonprofit that pushes abortion on demand be able to suspend the First Amendment if they lease out government property for a time?